issue connecting to Facebook, which is why you may have seen me pop on and off a couple times. We are showing a video that one of the West Wednesday Coalition members has put together, a documentary, and it's going to highlight some different things about a particular police officer who we've got a problem with. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brian. He's going to read a list of names of the people who've been killed in Baltimore City. And
so as part of our struggle, we commemorate the people that we lose to violence during our struggle. And we just do it here in Baltimore. This is where we live. These people are our community. And so if you could just, give their names back to me as I say them, that would be fitting. Leroy Green, 38.
Leroy Green, 38.
Dante Williams, 38.
Dante Williams, 38.
Randy Evans, 52.
Randy Evans, 52.
we are going to be showing a film that
Demi Howland, 1.
Denny Howland,
1.
Michael Johnson Jr., 33.
Michael Johnson Jr., 33.
Kawan Tates, 19.
Kawan Tates, 19.
Carl Smith, 19.
Carl Smith, 19.
Thank you. Bill, I'll turn that over to you if you want to talk a little bit about your work and what we're looking at.
Yes, thank you. First, the technical issue. This evening we had a little trouble starting up with our West Wednesday live stream. So the link tonight, instead of being on Facebook, is on YouTube, and then we're bringing it over to Facebook and other media platforms. So we hope you'll be able to find it. The video we're about to show is about a very important issue. One of the police officers of the 11 to 15 who took the life of Tyrone West, in fact, one who initiated the attack along with one other, one of the two instigators, his name is Ruiz, Jorge Bernardez Ruiz, and there was a video that was it surfaced this summer, and it's from 2016, and it shows him standing over a person that he and other police are arresting, and the neighbors nearby and the family members are very upset. We don't know exactly what Ruiz and the other police had done, but they were very upset. And he pulls out a gun, aims it at the man's head, and says, and I apologize for the language, he says, "I suggest you all back the fuck up." And clearly, the threat was that if the people in the area watching and being upset by the police conduct, if they didn't do what Ruiz asked, the threat was Ruiz would kill this man who was under police control on the ground. And so because that recently surfaced, a horrendous case of assault on the part of Ruiz, we think that of all the police that went after Tyrone and took his life, that at this moment it's appropriate to say to the city state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, that this cop, Ruiz, has to be prosecuted seriously and has to be indicted and has to be incarcerated. So this video tonight is about 6 different cases. Those are the cases we know about. The police records of complaints are secret, so we don't know how many others there may be, but we're aware of 6 cases in which Ruiz has engaged in racial profiling, brutality, assault, murder, and home invasion. So we hope you'll watch this, and we're going to put in the comments section how to send in a letter to Marilyn Mosby urging her to prosecute this police officer and get him off the street. So we'll be starting the video, I believe, shortly. First, Ms. Jones, Tawana Jones, will be speaking, and then we'll be starting the video.
So again, I want to thank you, Uncle Bill, for the phenomenal job of putting this horrible video together. You did a great job, but the it contains some very horrible things, and this is really sad. And I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Brother Ben for being the man in front of and back of the movement. But most importantly, I want you guys to stay focused. That's why we're doing this special edition of West Wednesday 375. I want you to stay focused on this video because horribly leading up to my brother's death, 24 hours, the video of Darrell Harris. Then the very next day, my brother was murdered. And the one that started it all, Ruiz. So keep your eyes on him. Be very clear. He's very dangerous, you guys. I'm not just saying this because he killed my brother, but he is a very dangerous man. So if you ever have an encounter with him for your own safety, while he's still working the street, please, I'm begging you, call for backup. Call 911. Do something that Tyrone West wasn't able to do. Had it not been for Darrell Harris getting the person in his car to dial 911 to send a supervisor out there, he probably would have been Tyrone West. So again, I want you to just watch this video, and we'll be back with you guys in 20 minutes. Thank you so much. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Police profiled me. They followed me in the back of my house, harassing me. Once I pulled over in my driveway, I stuck my hands out the window with my wallet. Police proceeded to violently and hostilely approach my van with me and my son in it. As I announced, this was my home, wallet in hand, guns drawn. Once they reached my vehicle, they violently pulled me out, ramshacked my vehicle with my 3-year-old son strapped in his car seat, threw me against the gate, slammed me repeatedly. Once the officers found that the neighbors were advocating for me, they demanded that my neighbors leave and even threatened their freedom, several of their freedoms, if they did not leave. And to add insult to injury, literally, once I was arrested, I had no idea what I was being arrested for. My son is scarred to this day. He remembers the incident as it happened yesterday. When he talks about it, he always refers to daddy being on the floor with police yesterday. My son is terrified to ride in the car without seatbelts, as the officers use this as an excuse as why they pulled me over, and I had my seatbelt on. My son is terrified to ride in the car without a seatbelt, without his seatbelt, or anybody else having his seatbelt on. My son is terrified of police, and this is why we will continue to fight for this struggle for civilian rights and against police brutality.
After Ruiz decided to stop destroying the van, I guess there was nothing else to tear up, and of course there was nothing in it to find and seize. As these are narcotic cops, plain clothes cops, right? So once we leaves the van, at this time I'm on the alley ground, and the officer Omen had decided to pick me up by my feet, and while I'm upside down, handcuffed, I kind of look up in the air, and I asked Ruiz, I say, are you gonna let him do this to me? And unbeknownst to me, ignorant of me, naive of me, he was the only brown officer there. So my naivety thought, to ask him, are you gonna let this type of terrorization continue? He just kind of looked and scoffed me off, and they proceeded to drop me on my head, hog tie me, and immediately when I fell on my head, Ruiz dropped on the back of my head and neck area, if you will, face first on the ground, in a wrestling type of action, and kind of hit his knee against my neck and head area. I'm, dazed, scared for my life at the time. Of course, these are all on the cusp of the Trayvon Martin case, and he's in litigation, court, and things of this sort. My son's in the van. They all the time, and they haul me off. We got to Northeast District, and the driver of the paddy wagon also, and the officer, gave me a moment of empathy, and asked what happened, what did I pull up to, what was all of that, that how this happened, and I described to him what happened, and he told me I was preaching to the choir, and how he knew the reputation of these three officers. So he immediately, after explaining to him the story, went maybe 20 paces to talk to another officer in the back of the Northeast District and explain to him what had taken place as well. And this officer, I could hear him, I couldn't see him, but I believe from the tone of his voice, and the cadence of his voice, he was a white officer. And after hearing what had happened, he immediately says, "Are you fucking kidding me again?" And these last pieces of the story are parts that it took me years to understand were a significant part of the story, because these pieces of the story depict and are vivid and genuine accounts of the credibility and or the character, speaks to the character of these officers. So that's our family's unfortunate experience with Officer Ruiz, his partners, and sadly enough to say that we've learned since these many terrorizations of Ruiz that he's been promoted as all three of the officers. But once again, this is not to any surprise to myself or any other individuals that are part of the fight that we know of in Baltimore. And if you're part of our coalition, if you're part of our inner circle, our grassroots organization, we know that there's been a strong pattern in practice, misleadership, misguidance, and reassurance of mispolicing the community. So we will continue to fight. We will continue to advocate. We will continue to have legislation change. We will continue to lead the nation when it comes to this narrative.
Yeah, see, what's wrong with it? There's no such thing as an improper way. I know the law. I know the law. I know the law. What's the problem? You giving me a ticket? You need my license registration? Cool.
Yeah, I do, but what did I do?
I mean, this is like the second time this week. It don't matter. This is what y'all do, y'all profile. Profile, y'all use the seatbelt as a reason. Profile. Hold on, Smith. Yeah, y'all profile.
Hold on a second, sir. You there, take out your keys? Yeah, you can record
For what?
Take my keys out for what?
I'm gonna park my vehicle. I'm gonna give him my license and registration like they asked.
Sir.
For what reason, sir?
I'm gonna call K9. I'm going to take your keys out your vehicle
Call
right now.
K9 for what?
Alright, then here's what happens. I'm gonna reach in.
Do you smell any drugs? Fuck K9 when they start. Whatever. I know the law.
That's fine, I do too.
Cool. Well, if you know the law, stop breaking it. Nah.
Roll down the window.
Roll it down for what? For what, bro? For what? I don't feel safe right now. Do you want me to step out the car? Do you want me to step out the car? I'll step out the
I
car.
don't need you to step out your car, sir.
Why are you putting your hand in my window?
Because I need you to roll down your
For
window.
what?
I'm about to call
Call the police, yo.
I'm about to call us.
Call the police, man.
Supervisor or something.
What are you call a supervisor? Don't do shit. This is getting uploaded to the internet right now.
Fine, you can load it up.
Yeah, what's your name?
Officer Ulmer, sir.
What's your
Do
name?
me a favor, just relax, alright?
You relax. Who y'all think y'all are? Y'all are ridiculous. Yo, bruh, I can't believe you, bruh.
It's an harassment. It's a harassment
A
situation.
supervisor immediately, yo.
And we are two law-abiding citizens that we are getting targeted, and I don't know why. Like this, the police officer actually just was turning.
Reached in my car, took my keys
I'll
out.
wait till the supervisor gets here.
Please to the supervisor immediately.
Like he was in the car.
In both of these cases, when you look at the pleadings and the harsh language of these officers that have been quoted to me by reliable witnesses, the N-word and what they will do to the N-words, and the pulling out by Mr. West by his hair, and the way they pulled Mr. Salam out of his vehicle, and the language, the atrocious language that was being used to these people as the beatings commenced, and Mr. West begging for his life, and Mr. Salam begging for his child to be excluded and comforted from what was taking place. Not for himself, for his 3-year-old child. Not just have to witness and see what he was seeing. But the main two officers, Mr. Chapman and Mr. Ruiz, they were the ones that are both the connection or the nexus between both cases. They were the stopping officers in these so-called jump-out cars, unmarked and so forth, that stopped both the West vehicle and the Salam vehicle without probable cause. And these officers are the ones that also were joined by others, but they are the ones who initiated the stops, pulled both men out of the vehicles, and commenced the vicious activity that was thrust upon them. And that led to Mr. West's death.
My brother Tyrone West was brutally murdered on July the 18th, 2013. And Killer Ruiz and Killer Chapman and the rest of those 11 and 15 killers, including David Lewis, took something from my family that they can never give us again. And that was my brother Tyrone West, one unarmed man who was brutally murdered, beat to death in broad daylight, 11 and 15 on one unarmed man. And the officer Ruiz that started this attack is still working and working with promotions. He is now sergeant. He is the one that you recently just saw in that video that took the airwave on the national level that happened in 2016. But the fact that this repeat violent offender had a history leading up to my brother. There was Darrell Harris, there was James Green, Joseph Green, Abdul Salam, and my sister Dina and her family. No one family deserves to be brutally murdered or brutalized by this repeat violent offender Ruiz. It is time we take action. The time is now. I repeat, the time is now. Don't wait until it's your loved one that is murdered. We're more than hashtags and body bags. We're more than being 6 feet in the dirt and pictures and buttons on t-shirts. Our lives matter. It may not matter to the killers that are murdering our loved ones, but it matters to the family members you leave behind that are suffering with pain, that are suffering with no answers, no transparency, no accountability. The time now is to change that. We demand that they reopen, revisit, and charge each and every last killer that murdered my brother, Tyrone West, one unarmed man. They lied, they said drugs was on my brother. No drugs were never found, never tested, never submitted. And out the killer's mouths, Ruiz and Chapman, who started this brutal murder of my brother, they said they don't know where the drugs came from. They thought they heard about it on the news. Enough is enough. And again, I'll say, the time is now. Cell blocks for killer cops. More than hashtags, more than body bags. Indict, convict, send Ruiz and Chapman to jail, and all those killers, because this whole entire system is guilty as hell. Ruiz must be fired immediately, indicted, convicted, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, right now.
To submit a 30-second testimonial that Jorge Omar Bernardez Ruiz is one of the 11 terrorists that came into my house performing a home invasion in September 2015, terrorizing my entire family and even holding my 12-year-old son at gunpoint. He needs to be stopped.
Suggest you back the fuck up. No, no. Back up.
I heard my front door coming off the hinges like it exploded.
Thomas McCullough says it happened twice. In May 2016 and February 2017, Baltimore City Police burst through his green front door and raided his Pimlico home.
They said, police. You know, I'm looking down at them. They come up, shotguns, guns.
He says officers ransacked the place, looking for drugs, money, and weapons. He took pictures of the damage he says they left behind.
Tell us where the drugs are, the scales, the guns, and the large amounts of money. And I took it jokingly. I'm like, any large amounts of money, you're fine. I'll take claim to that.
Nothing was found. Now he's suing police, claiming officers, including a former member of the Gun Trace Task Force, frightened him, his wife, and father-in-law when the officers conducted what his suit calls an illegal search of his home. McCullough received undated and unsigned copies of the warrants. One of them had the name of Detective Jorge Bernardez Ruiz. The other, Detective Daniel Waskowitz, who in his affidavit listed the letters GTTF. Both warrants had similar information.
They claim to have a confidential informant who claims to make a hand-to-hand transaction with somebody inside of that home.
After the second raid, McCullough feared another would happen. He moved his family out of Baltimore.
I'm trying to get some justice, and I didn't think I could get it through the police department.
The owner of the house tells 11 News after the second raid, he had to replace the front door. McCullough and his attorney say they want Baltimore police held accountable.
There is a colossal breach of trust.
And McCullough tells us following both raids, no one was arrested or charged. We contacted Baltimore City Police about the lawsuit. A spokesman says the department does not comment on pending legal matters.
Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
You're still muted, Tawanda.
Oh, I'm sorry, everyone, that we're having difficulty showing it on Facebook Live tonight. But after, I'm glad it's able to be on YouTube, so I can at least tonight share a watch party. But nevertheless, that video is real. That was my family member. That was friends that I know that I met, now the victims. You know, it's just really sad that anyone has to go through that type of abuse. But then, when we are dealing with the type of system we are that rewards killers, it's just really sad, and something definitely needs to be done. So, at this moment, I want to talk about, you know, ways that you guys can help support us. You know, just sending out the emails and just basically just saying enough is enough, because it can easily be you. You could be my brother, you could be Adina, Abdul, you could be any of the victims, and I would wish this on anyone. It's really sad that wherever we shows up, there's always chaos, confusion, and abuse. And unfortunately, in my brother's case, my brother was murdered. My brother was murdered. And I'm never going to stop until someone prosecutes him, not only for what he did to my brother, but for all the victims of police brutality that he brutalized. But I'm definitely, and it's just sad that the way they have it, well, one thing they'll say is something to the lines of, there's no statutation limit on murder, but yet when these killer cops do something, then you get all this kickback. It's not a simple process. It's just really sad and disgusting, because if I was out there abusing people or killing people, I would have been in a cell block. How is it he's able to have that type of reputation and then still secure his job? And then, let's be clear, he got promoted. He's now a sergeant. He literally went from, when he started, making maybe $30,000 a year to almost $100,000 now. Like for what? For brutalizing? So something definitely needs to be done. And I just, just want to thank everybody. And I'm gonna give the members of the West Coalition, if they want to say something now, they can, and then I can, come back and give y'all some more updates on other things. Mic check.
Mike,
Yeah,
check.
I'll jump in for a moment. We have, at the moment, at last count, 96 people who have emailed to Mosby, urging her to open this case to prosecute Ruiz, and we're gonna look at that again, and we'd like to encourage you, anyone that's watching, to also send in one of those notes to Mosby. In the case of Ruiz, it's outrageous that he's still on the force. It's 7 years ago that he played a leading role in taking the life of Tyrone West. That incident, as many of you watching probably already know, but I'll mention for anyone that doesn't, began with a simple traffic stop. Ruiz and one other cop used the N-word repeatedly. They pulled Tyrone West out of the car by his hair. They tased him. They maced him repeatedly, and they beat him with shoes, with hands, and with clubs, or whatever those weapons are that the police carry are actually called. And in the end, with a face full of mace, face down on the ground, handcuffed, having difficulty breathing, a 300-pound officer sits on his back until he takes his last breath. This is what Ruiz initiated and played a leading role in. And he has to be prosecuted. He has to be taken off this force. Now, the city state's attorney at the time when Tyrone West was murdered by the police, the city state's attorney at that time, before those police officers even finished giving testimony, he said, I am not going to prosecute these police, and gave them some immunity as far as his position was concerned. Now, when the next city state's attorney was running for office, that's Marilyn Mosby, she made a commitment to the West family, Tyrone's family, and said, we're going to work on this case again. But when she got in, she changed her tune, and she said, well, let me know if there's some new compelling evidence. There actually is new compelling evidence, because the family had a civil case, and in that civil case, the police officers and the witnesses gave depositions. We have all of that. In addition to that, the family paid huge amounts of personal money to get Tyrone's body out of the ground and sent to an out-of-state medical examiner for an impartial new medical exam, or whatever the name of that process is called. I'm sorry, I didn't get it quite right. And the results of that out-of-town medical examiner, his clear conclusion was that it was positional asphyxiation, which under the circumstances essentially means murder. Whereas the medical examiner's office in Baltimore claimed it was an unclear cause of death, but in all likelihood it had to do with a breathing problem and a dehydration problem or a heart problem. I'm not breathing, my fault. Dehydration or a cardiac, which is nonsense. Tyrone had a checkup shortly before that time when that occurred. He was in tip-top health. He had just been with his sister, and she had seen him drink a large thing of water. And so we demand that this case be reopened and that some accountability be accomplished in the murder of Tyrone and all these other cases that you just saw involving Officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz. And I turn it over to whoever's next.
So I want to go real quick again, just to clear up something. So let's be clear. Greg Bernstein, who was the state's attorney at the time, he gave all of the officers full immunity before he even got their statement. So let's be clear. He didn't wait till he got their statements. He gave them, they were off the hook before they were never on the hook. So he gave them full immunity before he even got a statement. And it took them 154 days to release a partial autopsy report to my family and then discuss us. And I'll never forget, it was around the Christmas holiday. It was like 2 weeks before Christmas. No, the first week, I'm sorry, let me take you back. We got the bad news from Greg Bernstein 2 weeks before Christmas that he was not going to prosecute anyone. But we got the disheartening news 2 weeks before Thanksgiving that there wasn't that my brother the autopsy, the partial autopsy report. took all those days when they actually said that the autopsy report was going to be complete the very next day, but it took them all those days to give my family a partially autopsy report. And let's be clear too that the medical examiner's office is very complicit in these murders. They're the reason why these officers get off. Let's be clear. And for Pamela Southpaw, she's the medical examiner doctor that actually did the autopsy. When she did that autopsy report, I want everybody to hear my voice. She had officers from the police department in there standing over her shoulders while she did my brother's autopsy report. While she had a few of them walking in my family's house to give us disheartening news the very next day, and they walked in my family's home at exactly noon. I'll never forget on July the 19th, they walked in at noon. My whole family was there, and they said that his autopsy report was going to be completed by 2:30 in the evening. And the thing that bothered me the most, before his autopsy was even done, they already knew what they was going to say. They came then saying, we want to make sure that your brother didn't have any heart issues. We want to make sure that the weather didn't contribute to Mr. West's death. Everything that they said before his autopsy was even completed, right, is what his autopsy said 154 days later. So let's be clear of all this stuff. And then my family, I got, matter of fact, someone called me, a known reporter with accurate information, called me the night before. I'll never forget the night before the mayor and Greg Bernstein came to him with that foolishness about my brother's medical examiner's report before Thanksgiving. But they said, Miss Jones, I'm just like, please don't say anything. We know that your brother was murdered. He died from positional asphyxiation. This is what the reporter said, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so that night I'm doing research like, wow, like, but we knew it, right? But then when they turned around that next day and lied, we're like, wait a minute, hold up, they saying something totally different. And then I quoted that reporter's name. Nobody never went after her or anything, but she was the first one. The second person to tell us positional asphyxiation was Dr. Mangan. That was our expert doctor from hired by our attorneys. That's what made me feel compelled and obligated to go and get my brother's body exhumed all over again off the ground and just let my brother have the last say so. And I myself spent $50,000. No help of anyone. That was my money that I had saved up in my account, and then something that was supposed to literally cost maybe 10 grand at the most went to 50,000. Then, if that wasn't enough, I had to pay an additional 10,000 that I did have to take up and get a loan out for the exit test. So something it literally cost $60,000 just for us to hear the truth. And this is really sad, but I'll never forget what the medical examiner's office said. He said to me, and it was true. He said, just like the police officers had their blue wall or shield or silence and things like that, he said, did you know the medical examiners had that same wall? And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. He said, but I'm a man of integrity. I'm just going to, wherever the truth leads us, that's where we're going to go at. And he came back with his conclusion that said my brother was murdered. But I said all that to say nobody family deserves to go through that type of hell, that type of pain, that type of trauma just for answers. And the fact that they're playing us, my family, when I say us, I mean my family, and I mean us as the West Coalition, right? We are family. So my second family, they're playing all of us as if we never was out there. Like, where were we at for the last past 7 years? The last past 375 weeks, 2,628 days. Where the hell were we? We've been right here. We never missed a beat. So for anybody to come on and say anything different is just foolishness. But I said all this to say that they don't want to hold people accountable. They just don't want to because it's an easy fix. Just like I just had a big, powerful week leading up to West Wednesday, and I'm giving shout outs to every platform. I'm giving homage to every platform that I was on. Starting off with Yankaport, that was really powerful this week, and that was a holy holiday and whatnot on Monday, and actually we celebrated on Sunday, and it led into Monday. But I said all this to say that everybody knows the truth, but the people that's supposed to do something with the truth refuse to do their job. They refuse to do their job, and it's just sad. So I'm here to stay for the whole entire long haul. That's why right now, me being on different platforms, the reason why I mention this because I want to bring out real quick I met Archie Elliott's mom, who basically Archie Elliott was murdered in Prince George's County in 1993, and he was inebriated or whatever. He had his shirt off. She described, and it was horrible. She said how they put him in the front seat of the car. And he was gunned down like an animal, and that was really sad and disgusting. And this poor mother does not have any accountability after decades of fighting. I don't want to be Archie Elliott's mom. Decades later, nothing's done. I felt her pain just by just seeing it, and it just seemed like these 7 years just came by just like that. Something that was just last year, it's 7 years. What is it gonna be 14 years? Like it's crazy. It's just they're letting time. So to me, justice delayed is justice denied, and if we don't force their hands to do something, that's what it's gonna be. You can do something to help uplift my brother, and not only my brother, all the victims. Just like Anthony Anderson, he came and he died. His blood was shed on Baltimore City hands before Tyrone West's blood. So let's be clear. But I know I'm dropping a lot. But the reason why I mentioned Archie Elliott and I brought the comparison of Rashid Brooks, that was basically murdered. He was inebriated, or whatever. He pulled over in the Wendy's parking lot and he was just trying to rest to get himself together. And he been offered, okay, I could walk home, and he was executed. Executed. But then I think of a victim here, and I wrote his name down. Give me 1 second. But yeah, his name was William. I can't find his name, but his name was Mr. William, and he basically, yeah, I'm sorry, William Howard Green. William Howard Green was killed in Prince George's County on January the 27th, and they just gave his family $20 million as if that's going to bring back that man. It's not going to bring him back. And what was it? But the funny part, I find out how quick it is when a black officer kills someone. They got the black killer cop, Michael Owens Jr. face all broadcasted on the news and all that. And he got charged. But why can't when it's a white cop? Why can't when whatever color the cop is, it should not play a factor in whether a family gets accountability or not. But I'm just looking at the fact that when it was a black killer cow, they quickly threw him under the bus. You see his face, you see all that and all that. But the crazy part, now, hold on, I don't care if they're black, white, or Chinese, it doesn't matter. Murder is murder, and that's not right. But the fact you have a handcuffed man and you put him in the front seat of your car and you kill him, you execute him, you shoot him over and over again, that is horrible. And that's what happened to Archie Elliott. Like, really? Rashad Brooks was caught trying to run away and was gunned down. They ain't tried nothing or they just killed him. So I said all this to say the victim name changes, but it's always the same thing. The violence never ends until we end it. It's unfortunately we're gonna have to be the ones to come up with something to make these people do their jobs. And listening to that presidential debate was horrible. Like anytime we can have this idiot 45 get on national TV. Let me clear the whole world watching, and he order a white supremacist group. He said his words were stand back but stand by. And he was talking about the Proud Boys. We got they want to block my Facebook, and we're doing the peaceful things. We're not coming in a hateful way. We're not even on live like we should. You can call me crazy or whatever. I don't think it's a coincidence. I know how cruddy this system is. They will shut everybody down just to get to you. They're the type of people that wears those. They want to kill me, God forbid, they will actually act like it was a string of robberies in her neighborhood and kill a few of my neighbors just to get to me so they can make it add up. It's not adding up. Because I'm going to tell y'all right now, God forbid, if anything happens to me, go get them and shut it down. I'm not one to start violence, incite riots, or anything. All I'm trying to do is make people do their job what's right, be transparent. Why do we have to beg? But then I thought about it when he was asked, 45 was asked about racism. He couldn't even answer the question. But the thing is, they're not sorry about what we're going through. You know why he never said? My mother always taught me that If you're sorry about something, you apologize and you never make that mistake again. But a murderer, let's be clear, a murderer is not sorry for all the lynchings and the way that they treat black and brown people. They're not sorry. That's why they're not apologizing. Let's be clear. That's why nobody's gonna give us apology. No one's gonna try to give us reparations or none of that because they're not sorry. You know why? Because it's still going down. It's still going down. Every week, Uncle Bill has this long list. Sometimes he don't, but it's just horrible. Sometimes he can wrap up one list in a week. It's about 20 or 50 names. There shouldn't be no names on the list. Just like Brian, he talks about community. You hear a 1-year-old child in there. And that baby died from an overdose of drugs. Like it's sad. So to me, all of us connected. When you talk about community violence, police brutality, it's all connected to that highway of health that we need to do something about. We need to figure out what we need to do, and that's why I want to give y'all a special shout out because unlike most of us, like Nicole was on the line, she lost her father-in-law, she lost her daughter, she feels the pain, she lives, sleeps, and breathes it every night, right? But the difference from like Uncle Bill, Ben, Hillary, the Hilleback family, right? Ryan family, right? You guys never lost somebody in that such a violent way. You get what I'm saying? But you guys give us your time. You guys became my real family with my family. You became, our biggest supporters, our everything wrapped up into one. That's how my brother Tyrone was to me. He was like my mother, my best friend, my father, everything in one. And that's what you guys mean to me just by being here and taking your time away from your families. We are family, so I just wanted to give y'all an extra shout out, and we just gotta figure this out and force their hands to do right. So that's all I wanted to say. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mike Jack.
Mic check.
Yeah, I just want to add on the case of Archie Elliott, that he was already in the police cruiser, handcuffed. I believe his hands were behind his back, and that's when the police shot him 21 times, 24 times. I've forgotten exactly. It was a horrible case. Horrible case. Yeah, and his father was judge. So they can do this to anybody.
And remember, she said he was sitting up front in the police cruiser as well, just like with Mr. Williams that was assassinated. So again, like I said, they like to relive out these acts of violence again. You get what I'm saying? They love doing that to us. They killed Anthony Anderson a year before, tossed that man on his head like a football. At and his mother, unfortunately, his grandbabies and kids had to watch him be executed. You get what I'm saying? My brother had David Lewis put in his neck, even though Ruiz initiated this murder. Ruiz and Chapman initiated it, and the rest of the animals came there to join them as if they were doing the sport. I feel like now is no other time the way the horrible 45 is telling everybody to stand back, but stand by. We need to stand back and stand by and be ready, but whatever they're trying to bring us. Like enough is enough. Like I'm peaceful, all that, but it's gonna come a time, and I'm just being real Christian. I'm trying not to let it get to that point, but it's gonna come a time people are not going to want to keep on hearing about their loved ones being murdered, and they just keep coming back begging and system. It's like I was on there with it was a panel this week. The Voices in the Struggle, which Archie Elliott mom was on there with me, but my sister Beverly touched on a lot of things because her son case was presented to the grand jury, and she taught me a lot about how the grand jury they could prosecute whatever case that they want to prosecute if they give all the facts. Whatever they want to withhold to get whatever type of answer or response back from that jury, that's what they do. And that's why these damn cases are not being prosecuted. That's why the grand jury will come back with, oh, well, no, it would, and that's sad. That's disgusting. But like I said, until we change these lynching laws, until we just change this damn system, we're going to constantly keep on going through this. And it's just it's time is now. We need to stand back like he said and stand by and be ready to bring it.
If someone else would like to speak this evening, it's fine. Otherwise, I'll say a few more words.
I just wanted to say one thing. Just piggybacking off of Tawanda. I love all of y'all. Y'all became my family. And a special thanks to Tawanda for always inviting me, always allowing me to be here, to be a part of this every week. Unfortunately, I have the worst phone system in the world, and my phone is about to die. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I definitely will be here next Wednesday, and I'm going to try to get me a new phone as soon as possible because I'm tired of it dying in the middle of something so important. But I just want to say good night to everybody. I love you all, and I will see y'all next week.
Good night, Queen. We love you as well.
Good night.
Good night,
Peace,
and
peace.
we love you back.
Thank you.
So I want to say a word about three illusions that people have about racism. Illusion number one is that it's gotten better since the period of Jim Crow and the lynchings. If we look back at that period of time, the average number of lynchings per year was 60. Now, the population of African Americans has increased since then about 4 times. So if we multiply that by 4 to make it a modern day kind of number, that would be 60 times 4, 240. Pardon my weak math. But the police, the Klan in blue, they lynched or killed, however we want to describe it. They killed 1,100 people more or less. It's been pretty consistent now for quite a few years. They kill that number of people every year. That's 4 times greater than it was during the lynching period. Now we all understand how horrible the lynchings were. But sometimes we don't recognize the increased horror that we have today with the level of police brutality. So that's illusion number one, that things have gotten better on this question. Illusion number two, some people think that racism is just a matter of attitudes and individual acts. But let's look at the slavery period for a moment. Why did slavery exist? Because it was the cheapest possible way to produce cotton, to produce tobacco, and if we go into the Caribbean, to produce sugar, and if we go into South America, to mine gold and silver. So it cost a little bit. They had to provide a little bit of housing, a little bit of clothing, and a little bit of food, the slave-owning class, but unpaid labor was the cheapest possible way to produce those things to maximize the amount of money they could make. That was the heart of slavery. So it didn't arise out of some negative ideas in people's heads. The reality was the economic needs of the slave system, which then in turn caused a whole cultural shift into a racist mentality. The third thing I wanted to say, the third illusion is that racism exists today as a sort of a carryover or a legacy from slavery, and that's the only reason we still have racism in the modern world. But that's not true, because today there are very powerful forces that benefit from racism, and they bring racism back every year. As Lerone Bennett said, used to be the Black History writer for Ebony magazine, he said the class in power, in order to convince people to be racist, has to do that again and again in every generation. And we see that process unfolding now with, as Tawana was just saying, stand back, but be ready, or whatever the exact expression was. And the reason racism is so useful to the system today is similar to slavery. It was an economic issue then, it's an economic issue today. The lower wages paid to workers of color, the money saved by doing that turns out to be about 1/3 of corporate profits. And so some businesses would go out of business if it were not for the benefits to them of racism and the pay differentials. And so when we fight racism today, we have to recognize that it's intertwined with the whole system of capitalism. This was true from 1619. It was actually true a century before that, because slavery goes back another 100 years before that, when the Spanish colonialists brought slaves. So we're talking 500 years of the history of racism in this part of the world. At any rate, slavery and capitalism were intertwined at the beginning. They're intertwined today. And there's a wonderful new book that very clearly and wisely points out we can never defeat one of those without defeating the other. And I just wanted to add that to the discussion today. And we're going to get the technical stuff better. We're going to make sure that everyone who wants to write a letter to Mosby, sorry. That's the Biden effect. You see, when you get to my age, you sometimes stumble on your words. But anyway, we want to make sure that anyone who would like to help can send an email without a lot of difficulty to Mosby to push and push hard that she has to take at least this one case, at least one of the killers of Tyrone West, Ruiz, and prosecute him and get him incarcerated where he belongs. And I'll pass the mic on to whoever else will be joining in for this evening.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Well, it seems like nobody else really want to say nothing. I just want to say real quick, thank you for that history, Uncle Bill. But my biggest thing is, I don't care how racism and slavery started. I just feel like it needs to end. And this is said that just living in my body, being hated just for the skin I'm in, not nothing that I don't did, that I ever did or anything. Just a person could just actually look at you because you look different from them and treat you like hell. That's horrible. That is terrible. Like nobody knows how it feels unless you are, an actual black woman, black man, black child. You get what I'm saying? A brown woman, black, brown father, child, whatever. But it's just sad and it's just not right. It's just not right. Like knowing that your life could actually end just because of the color of your skin. You can't even get a fair shot at accountability just because of the color of your skin. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And it plays out. And just like I told you, when the black killer cop killed, they were quick to throw him under the bus. But the white cop did the same thing, worse to Archie Elliott, and nothing happened. Nothing. Nothing happened. If that don't speak in volumes, a hush. Just like with Detective Suter, black cop. Black cop. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. And it's just sad. That's why I say that no matter what, we need to fight this thing together. And even if you're an officer looking at me, because yes, I know a lot of officers, we done had plenty on our platform that, they feel embarrassed to even say that they're an officer. But you too can do something because it could affect you, especially if you're black or brown. It definitely can hit your family. You gotta take that uniform off, and the crazy part, you can get killed with that uniform more. Think about I can't even think of his name right now. I'm sorry, but there was another officer that was killed by one. I think his name was Detective Torben or something like that. Officer Torben. I'm sorry, Officer Torben. He was gunned down at a nightclub doing off-duty police work, doing security work, but they knew he was an officer, and they laid a gun by him, and nothing happened. I met his family, embraced them, gave them hugs, and told them I would fight the same way I fight for my brother, for one of them. So right now we can fight this thing together. You don't have to become a victim. You don't have to. You can stop it now by fighting and doing what's right. And that's what we need. We need more love. And if anybody's been having a hard week, because I feel like everything has been thrown at me but the Bible. Like everything. I done had a hard week. Like I'm getting challenged on all levels for no reason at all. But to me, in order to say you believe, you gotta be tested, unfortunately, and you gotta. And the only thing that keeps me going is my love, my humbleness. I have to just remind myself and say it's gonna be all right. You got this. Like I just say that to myself. I have to say that to myself. You got this. So if anybody that's having hard times right now, I encourage you take some time off for yourself. Like Nicole, she jumped off, but she had to take some time off for herself, and she came back looking refreshed, beautiful and everything. Sometimes you need that break. It's okay to take time. I'd rather you take a break than a breakdown. So if you need time to take a break from anything, it's okay. Take a break. Breathe. Enjoy life. Even though there's a lot of things that's wrong, but we do still have a lot of things that's worth living, and that's your family, that's your friends, that's us, that's the work we're doing to make sure that the next generations don't go through what we're going through, or at least not at the pace that we're seeing it at now. So I always say, live to love to live. I love you all. Anybody have anything else you want to say before we close out? Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.